Yo, what's up guys? It's current day and current year, and we're getting another Warcraft 3 patch note. We're gonna go through it, but you may wonder why the silence for so long after they started patching earlier this year, and why do we suddenly have a patch, and what is in it? Well, I can give you a little spoiler. There's balance changes and bug fixes, but first, let's talk a little bit about the news that was unveiled 6 days ago. Namely, Microsoft completes Activision acquisition. There's a bit of a tongue twister in it.
Microsoft completes acquisition of Activision Blizzard by Freeman October 13th, 2023, 16:12. Discuss.
So, does that mean that this is the first Microsoft patch? They work fast, isn't it? My, just 6 days. And they've already got a patch out. Well, realistically, they were probably already working on it. Though I do wonder, is it the impending transition of Microsoft that has made certain policy changes within Blizzard already? Like, what do companies like this do? I would imagine that, like, the proper takeover could take months or years until they, like, fire whoever they want to fire, close projects they are no longer interested in, or start new ones. So, with them knowing it's probably gonna work, like, understanding the legality of things, probably they would have already started doing certain things, which would include whatever philosophy they have on supporting old games like Warcraft.
54 comments. After almost 2 years, Microsoft has finally closed the $68.7 billion deal and acquired Activision Blizzard. Confirmed by Phil Spencer, head of gaming at Microsoft. The deal comes after the final approval from UK's Competition and Markets earlier today. The acquisition puts Activision Blizzard, developers Infinity Ward, Raven Software, Sledgehammer Games, Treyarch, Toys for Bob, Beanox, and High Moon Studios, as well as the mobile game maker King, which is known for its Candy Crush game, all under Xbox Game Studios.
I know King.
In case you missed it, Microsoft announced its intention to acquire Activision Blizzard back in January 2022, after which it started its battle with various regulators, including UK CMA, the European Commission, the US Federal Trade Commission.
I think US was
in its
last
extensive statement, Phil Spencer, head of gaming at Microsoft, once again confirmed that they will continue to make more games available in more places, as it promised to the European Commission, and they can now...
So now I'm thinking, Diablo 4 just hit Steam. Overwatch 2 or Overwatch 1 is on Steam. Maybe HOTS will go on Steam. Maybe Warcraft 3 will go on Steam. Maybe everything will go on Steam. And maybe that's part of like their plan. So I'm thinking whatever Microsoft intended to do with Blizzard has already begun.
I'll start the work to bring all those franchises to Game Pass and other platforms. Earlier this week, Activision Blizzard confirmed it expected to start adding titles to Game Pass in 2024, if the aforementioned deal goes through. Here is the full statement from Phil Spencer. We love gaming. We play games, create games, and know firsthand how much gaming means to all of us as individuals and collectively, as a community. And today, we officially welcome Activision Blizzard and their teams to Xbox. They are the publishers of some of the most played and most beloved franchises in gaming history across console, PC and mobile. From Pitfall to Call of Duty, World of Warcraft to Overwatch, Candy Crush Saga to Farm Heroes Saga.
Bro, what the fuck? You said Pitfall first? What about HOTS? Warcraft 3? StarCraft 1 and 2? Pitfall, Call of Duty, and Candy Crush. Okay.
Saga. Their studios have pushed the boundaries of gaming for players around the world. I've long admired the work of Activision, Blizzard, and King, and the impact they've had on gaming, entertainment, and pop culture. Whether it was late nights...
Yes, I too admire King and the impact they've had on mobile gaming.
Spent playing the Diablo 4 campaign with friends from start to finish, gathering the entire family in the rec room for our weekly Guitar Hero night, or going on an epic streak in Candy Crush. Some of my most memorable gaming moments came from experiences their studios have created. It is incredible to welcome such legendary teams to Xbox. As one team, we'll learn, innovate, and continue to deliver on our promise to bring the joy and community of gaming to more people. We'll do this in a culture that strives to empower everyone to do their best work, where all people are welcome.
That's nice.
Are welcome, and is centered on our ongoing commitment of gaming for everyone. We are intentional about inclusion in everything we do at Xbox, from our team to the products we make and the stories we tell, to the way our players interact and engage as a wider gaming community. Together, we'll create new worlds and stories. Bring your fa.
Bring your fa. Yeah, I ran out of free words for this text-to-speech, including mobile, cloud streaming, etc. Players have always been bullshit. Okay, patch notes. Patch 136.1 will feature map pool updates, balance, bug fixes, and additional game improvements. Added a save load functionality back to online games. Yeah, we lost this with Reforged. Enabled the ability to view hero XP bar by hovering the mouse over the bar in the selection panel in observer mode. Added the ability to view profile for your teammates. Fixed the crash. Let me go through the bugs that I was actually aware of. Yeah. Campaigns, subfolders, players disconnect when looking at match history. AT elimination matches were not being processed correctly. And what about FFA? Okay, it doesn't cover everything. All right, balance, interesting. Now, I wonder what qualifies them to do balance changes. Who are they using? Like, who is aware of the meta of the game? They've not consulted me or anyone I know, at least as far as I know. And then, who's doing it? Are they getting outside help for it from some? Is it Playside Studios that is being consulted on it? So yeah, let's check it out. Objectively open-minded. Militia duration increased. I think it used to be 45, and it was nerfed to 40. Human was quite strong in 2010, and militia rushing orcs was really popular and common. They nerfed it, and human by now maybe has got to be the weakest race. Militia timing is part of it. Longer militia will help them fast expand better, but it also helps them tower rush better, and it also helps them bring militia repeatedly into the map to fight in random fights, which is 1v1 base. This was pretty common. You just go for a random 1v1 battle, and then you bring in militia for a battle somewhere in the middle of the map. That's a little bit better now, but 2.5 seconds isn't much. I think it's a nice, subtle buff. This is fine. I just saw something on the third line, which is so out of touch. But let's go to the second one first. Bash bonus damage increase from 25 to 25, 50, 75. I think that's too good. Bash is quite competitive. We see a lot of Bolt Clap, but it's not because Bash sucks, but because Bolt and Clap are both really good. Sometimes you see Bolt Bash in Orc versus Human, and it is quite strong. The stun is nice. It happens fairly frequently because the chance to bash goes up, and also bringing the damage up like this, I think it's pretty insane. I think it's too much. Devotion aura from 2 to 3, 3.5 to 6, and 5 to 9. This is insane. It's like they don't even know the value of armor. And in fact, I would argue even many of the players don't know the value of armor. Armor has always been kind of underrated. Ring of Protection used to be +2, then Blizzard buffed it to +3, then +4. We still don't like armor, but it's not because it's not good. It is very good. It non-diminishingly reduces physical damage received. Every point of armor does the same amount of effective health increase against physical damage. The problem with armor, partially, it doesn't creep very well. So the reason people want damage early game on their blade, on their Archmage, is because you creep faster. Yes, you take more damage from creeps, but you beat them anyway, right? So you want to creep fast and level up fast. Once it comes to battle time, armor is pretty good. But again, there is a kind of agency in having damage, because you can choose who you want to focus with the damage. Whereas with armor, you need them to focus the guy that's carrying the Ring of Protection. If you focus something else, the ring doesn't do anything. So, in a way, Ring of Protection is a little underpowered, as by design, it can be ignored. Devotion aura cannot be ignored. Devotion aura is actually very, very good. It affects everything, including peasants, heroes, summons, and all units, even units that normally cannot have armor, like Sorks and Priests. Devotion already was buffed with Reforged, giving it a small buff from 2 to 2.5, 3.5 to 4, and 5 to 5.5 would still be a noticeable, strong improvement. But 9? Twice as good almost at level 3? That's so insane. Can you imagine what this does to like Pala First Expo, Pala Rifles? Pala Rifles, I'm saying it, if this is going to go through, Pala Rifle against Undead and Orc is actually going to be broken. Like, not just competitive, but it's going to be the #1 strat. It's so insane. I don't mind playing with this for a week, but if this is their idea for forever, I think it's terrible. Mountain King movement speed reduced from 290 to 80. It's a bad change, I think. Mountain King always gets boots because he's so slow. He's already slower than others. Human is already slower than other races. Elf is naturally fast, and the other two races have speed aura. I don't know why to punish the MK Paladin more for being slow. It doesn't feel fun as a player. Nor do I think are other races than human ever super negatively disadvantaged in a bad feeling way or in an unfair way by Pala and MK being so fast. I don't think anyone ever said Pala or Mountain King is too fast. I don't think that's ever been the problem. And I don't think they need to be slower. It feels like it comes out of nowhere, and I don't see any problem that's being solved with this. They're doing this to balance the aura update. This way the paladin will be left behind by the rest of the army. I see. I see. That's yeah, that makes sense. Alright, so far I think I only agree with this one. I think the rest is bad. Go on. Night Elf. Druid of the Talon cost increased by 10. So Talons got a buff that they can now take down destroyers, because their piercing damage now can attack destroyers instead of having magic. I haven't seen this being applied a whole lot. Elf generally hates making non-magic immune units or low HP units against undead, because they just get Novat and die. So Wild Talents against Destroyer can be pretty good. Nova just wrecks them, even worse than Hippos. You see Night Elf generally avoids Archer Talon against undead. They just make Dryads, which are magic immune, Fairy Dragons, which are magic immune, or Bears or MGs, which are really big. Immolation, activation cost going up a bit. That's less than it used to be, more than it is now. I think that's a good change. Gives a little bit more agency to... Well, it gives a little bit more meaningfulness to them turning it on and off, because right now there is no meaning to it. So I think that's a good change. Actually, with the current power level of Immolation, I don't mind if it costs a 10 to activate. Initially, I cheered on the mana cost reduction of activating it. Maybe it used to be 2.5 actually. I mean 25 to activate. I could be wrong. It was either 10 or 25. But anyway, 5 is still not much. And then Immolation mana cost, mana activation requirement increased from 9 to 10. So it's a little bit more expensive. Wasn't it 35? I don't know anymore. Warden Blink cooldown reduced. This may seem wild to people, but it used to be 1. For most of Warcraft's history, Warden was 10-7-1 or 10-5-1 or something. In TFT it was 1, the level 3. And Warden was strong against undead and human, but it was not unbeatable. You had to be good to use it. Now, Windwalk and Blink both got a cooldown increase, because Windwalk had no cooldown and Blink had 1. And they both made it really hard to interact with the hero before they disappeared again. And this has the threat of going there again, especially considering Mountain King is slower now. So it's really hard to catch her. Warden games are generally quite fun to play from both sides, in my opinion. Humans may not agree, but I think it's pretty fun. And it's fun to watch. So seeing her more instead of just Demon can be nice. Same against Undead. They are some of the most cool games to watch. But yeah, you could also do 3 seconds. Keep in mind, 2.5 is still a lot more than 1, and it was not the most broken thing back then. I mean, it was really good, but you would pick it over ult, you would pick it over Shadow Strike, you would pick it over Fan of Knives until she's level 7. So that's a pretty hard choice to make, and not always commonly made. Usually it's a level 7 thing, and I think level 7 heroes are allowed to be pretty broken. Fan of Knives, max total damage. What the... What? Wow, no. No. That's way too much. Warden is already quite good against human and undead. This is... Why would you... But why? Why so much? What? And why so heavy-handed? Spiked Carapace is a shit ability on Criplord. It does 2 little armor and 2 little damage return. I wouldn't mind if it was increased. Oh my god. 15, 25, 35 to 15, 30, 45. Okay, they didn't put the percent here, but this was not a flat damage return. It looks like it's going from flat to percentage, but that's not what it is. They're just making it scaling double and triple from level 1 instead of +10, +10. I think that's okay. Spike Carapace bonus armor. Hey, why not 5, 10, 15? Damn, they really think armor sucks, huh? Jeez. +5 armor to devotion, +4. +5 to level 3 carapace. When arguably, it's not the level 3 that was that bad. It's the level 1 that's so bad. From 3 to 4, small difference. Huh. Damn.
Inflation getting out of control with these armor buffs.
Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. Actually, when you compare Devotion to Spiked Carapace, it's a joke, isn't it? It's barely more than Devotion. It's 1, 2, 3 more than Devotion. And for just one hero. Like, yeah, I know there's damage return, but just don't hit him, lol. If you actually go by Devotion, which should not be like this, but if you go by Devotion, it should be like 6, 12, 18, no? Alright, Raise Dead from the Skeletons, from 75 to 50 mana, that's a pretty big buff. Cripple from 125 to 100, and Skeleton Mastery cost reduced. I think they could have just done this, and it'll be fine. This seems pretty strong, but let's not pretend Raise Dead ever gets used in pro play. It pretty much never has, and it still isn't. So if you want to make it competitive, this might help. Skeletal Mastery cost is a good change, yeah. Nerubian Tower cooldown increased. Oh, wow. Alright, so right now Nerubian Tower does the same amount of slow as Frost Nova and Halls of the Dead. And Frost Armor. And it is all quite a lot. It's 50% slow and 50% attack slow. And I actually counseled for reducing that. But that is a bit harder to code. It's easier to touch the attack cooldown for the tower. Nerubian is part of the problem for undead base defense, both on expansions and their main. And if you don't target fire change the tower at all, it doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, it's a damage reduction, but it's mostly about the slow. But one Nerubian was able to permanently slow 5 units at the same time if you spend full micro on it. Tap, 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 tap. You could slow 5 units, which was just crazy. And now you will only be able to do 3. So that's a pretty nifty nerf that I think is a little helpful. It's also going to be slower to retarget to a unit when they're about to get out of range. They were like slowing a grunt. You know, oh, I want to get a slow on the hero. Cryptlord and Dreadlord movement speed. Oh, so they're reducing all the strength and intelligence hero. No, not. I think this is fine. I remember there was a movement speed buff on many heroes when Reforged was coming out. Dreadlord. Dreadlord feels pretty slow already. Somehow for Cryptlord and Lich, I don't feel like they need to be nerfed on move speed. I mean, somehow for Lich, I think movement speed nerf is okay. But for Dreadlord, it feels pretty punishing. Like, that makes the hero pretty bad. And note how he didn't get any buffs. I think this should not be here. This is okay. And the Cryptlord is also not okay in my opinion. I don't think it does good. So what's the total net change for the 3 races so far before we look at Orc? Insane buff, unnecessary nerfs with a small impact. Nice buff. So this cannot go through like this. Human will be insane. This is okay. Talents get used quite a bit against Orc, and it is a dominant strategy again. Nerf, buff, huge buff. Overall, I feel like giving Warden option again, that's pretty damn good. It's probably a net buff to Night Elf. They don't use talents a lot. This is a huge buff, of course. For Undead, something that never gets used gets buffed. Something that never gets used gets buffed. Something crucial gets nerfed. Something crucial gets nerfed. And these two don't get used much. So overall, Undead takes nerfs unless they can innovate with Cryptlord and Skeletons. So Undead down, Elf up for the most part, and Human up a lot. That feels... For Elf, it's not really a huge deal. Human buff seems correct, but it's too much. Undead nerf seems correct. And it's not too much. It may not be enough even. So that's my opinion so far. Let's look at Orc. Alright, let's take a look one by one. Blade Storm damage increase. Yeah, it sucks. It doesn't do a lot of damage. The blade dies during it. It costs too much mana and the cooldown is too long. Overall, it's just really disappointingly bad. This is a really big buff, which actually makes it super exciting. You can still kite against it. Keep in mind, Blade cannot be speed scrolled. He cannot be bloodlusted during it. Boots of Speed actually makes Bladestorm a lot better, because it actually works with Bladestorm. Bladestorm also has this interaction where you can still get Lightning Orb attacks during it, which is completely invisible, but if you right-click things during Bladestorm, you're actually getting attacks off as well, which is kind of weird. And they actually copied that in Dota 2.
I've been watching you playing WC3 since MIM times and it is still great.
Thanks, Boots and Lily. And this is like something like a 45% damage increase, which is pretty damn good. Good damage. And I think it makes a difference. I think this makes it... Because nowadays, you pretty much don't even pick Bladestorm, that's how bad it is. Even though Windwalk 3 is not incredible, Mirror Image 3 is not incredible, and Crit 3 is pretty good, but it's boring, right? Like, it's pretty linear. You still generally don't pick Bladestorm, because either you're getting mana burned, or you're getting Spellbreakered, or Siphon Mana'd, or the enemy has just air units, or they can split against you. There's so many reasons not to use it, and generally you don't have the mana because you've been spending it on Windwalk and Image and whatnot, and Orc doesn't have any mana generation techniques, so they need to spend money. So Bladestorm for them costs 1.5 mana pots, so it's like 150 gold, 150 gold worth of mana just to cast an ult. And yeah, I mean, the stats don't lie. People often don't pick it. But I have had some Bladestorms that did matter, usually against Talons back in 2000, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9. And it was pretty good against Talons. I can only imagine the amount of damage this would unleash on Talons if it actually gets used. And this is good news for Batrider abusers that like to go Blade Bats and then use Bladestorm against towers. It might be too much, but at least it'll be picked. Next. Spirit Walker build time reduced. It does build very slow. Spirit Walker sees play in Orc Mirror. It barely gets used against human anymore. It gets used against Elf Bears, but I feel like Elf Bear, with the current patch, has an advantage over Orc. With mana burn, Demon Mana Burn Immolation into Keeper with Thorns, and then Dryad into Bear, with or without Expo. Walker gets used there, but I feel like Elf has the advantage. Walkers don't get used against Undead, so overall buffing them doesn't seem like it's going to create massive problems. They don't get stronger, but they will come out earlier, which can help with timings, and you will generate more mana during the 5 seconds they're out. I think this is a nice and deserved buff. You don't use Walkers against Undead Mass Necro. Undead doesn't play Necro against Orc. You would make them if they do it, but it doesn't happen. Of course, anything happens at low level, but you don't balance around low level. Nor should you. Spirit Walker Adept training. Yep. This takes too long as well. Might be too much of a buff, but it's a pretty big buff. This is just straight up Orc buff for Grunt Raider Walker strats, which will actually further push Orc Mirror back into Grunt Raider Walker. It kind of already is. We saw a long stint of Farseer Headhunter, but it's already gotten worse. This will make it worse even still. I could foresee most Orcs going Blade Shadow again in Orc Mirror with Grunt Raider Walker, which honestly was a fun meta of Mirror. Yeah, this one took too long too. It also opens up a little bit Tauren builds, which is I think the most exciting thing about it. Tauren Walker is a build that I successfully used in the W3 Champions season finals with Back to Warcraft casting. I used it against Blade and Hawk, the two best humans in Europe, and I beat them both 2-0 with a specially developed Farseer Headhunter into double totem Walker Tauren build. I continued to use it on ladder before and after with some success, but it has gotten worse. Partially, they're countering it better. Partially, Farseer Wolves got nerfed in mana cost, Speed Scroll got nerfed in gold cost. Partially, Headhunters got nerfed. They lost 25 health again. This was like 6 months ago. So the transition from Farseer Headhunter into Tauren Walker was quite tough, especially because Walker takes so damn long to build and upgrade. So this makes me excited to try that build again, despite the weaker Headhunters. Still, yeah, armor for Orc costs too much lumber. All of them. But especially level 2 and 3, not level 1. So they're reducing the level 1 lumber upgrade. Oh. Wow, that makes melee weapons quite attractive. And ranged? Really? Oh, and it's the increment. So it's 25 less at level 1, 50 less at level 2, 75 less at level 3. Pretty nice upgrade buffs for Orc. They're quite lumber strapped usually. But this is basically buffs across the board in every matchup. I feel like it is most relevant against Undead. Let's see where this has the biggest effect. In Orc Mirror, you go Ground Raid or Walker Kodo, but you generally don't get upgrades because the timings are too important. You need too many units for more ensnares and mana to waste money on upgrades. Upgrades used to be a thing, but I feel like Orc Mirror got even faster than before. A lot more fights at 40, 50 and 60 pop, so there's no space for upgrades. You don't have enough Grunt Raider to really justify it as well. Then against Undead, Orc makes quite a lot of upgrades. They upgrade Headhunters, particularly attack upgrade. And eventually armor as well, like 1-1 or 2-0 and then 2-1. So this helps Orc against Undead, which I know it's crazy because Orc was OP against Undead for so long, but I think Orc is now weak against Undead. I think Undead is OP against Orc. So that's my opinion. And this will help a bit against Undead, which is good.
Grubby, can you please manipulate real life's RNG to stop making bad health things all happen to me at once, please? Thanks.
Okay, sure. Let's both be healthy from now on. No more coughing, sneezing, or even worse. Then against Elf, we don't see a lot of upgrades against Talents. You don't have the time for it. Against Bears, sometimes it can be nice to have an armor upgrade, but it's pretty rare to have the timing for it to do it. This will help a bit with that. Against Human, Orc upgrades are actually second most common after Orc Undead. And what we usually see is 1 or 2 attack upgrades for Grunt Raider to help against Spellbreakers. We don't see as much armor upgrades against Human because they get much of their damage through Blizzard and Clap and Stormbolt, which armor doesn't help with. So I think this will be a pretty nice buff, but nothing too huge. And then TC gets the same treatment as the others. We never buy boots for TC. Boots has been removed from the drop table. It was always quite nice when you found one. The only hero that ever gets boots is Blade Master. So would you want to get boots because of it? I don't think so. I think he's just slower and you accept it. And he gets endurance, so he's always going to be like relatively fast eventually. If everyone else gets it, he can get it too. I don't think it's as huge of a deal as for some of the others, but obviously it's a noticeable nerf. Alchemist, slower, Tinker, Sea Witch, and Panda. Sea Witch is really gonna feel it. She's gonna be a lot more chaseable. Tinker doesn't get used much. Alchemist gets used against Orc as a third hero by Undead when they're going Mass Wyverns. It will make a small difference. Panda. Yeah. I would like to understand the philosophy for all the hero movement speed decrease, but if most heroes get it, then it's whatever, I guess. Then Circlet, back to the drop table, thank God. We had way too many rings, it was boring. It was all rings of protection. The Tomb of Retraining, not Tome, found the first typo. Now has 2 charges, okay, fine. Rusty Mining Pick, added as a level 3 item. Grants 1 damage and 15% chance to bash. Oh my god. Bro. It's kind of exciting to get a new item. It sounds kind of broken. A level 3 item? So this is the Pity Up to Fatality category. That's pretty exciting. And the bash is 25 damage, I guess? Can you have a ranged bash? Or is it less chance to bash, like in Dota, if you're ranged? I guess not. Can you imagine a Shadowhunter bashing? And how does it stack with MK? I think this is the most fun. You can tell that there is a lot of rebalancing to talk about, but that actually adding new things to a game is the most exciting. Turns out people like new content for their old games.
If you had one advice to give to your 18-year yourself, can't be anything like buy a Bitcoin in order to make some profit, so it has to be some deep advice, what would it be? Keep shining.
I might get deviated septum surgery later this year. I have an appointment soon to look into it at the hospital. If it ends up making my life better, that would be my number one regret, that I didn't do it earlier, because I have to deal with these sinus issues for so many years. Nothing else. Oh yeah, wash your hands when you shake people's hands at events. Wash your hands before touching your face. But yeah, that mostly that. I don't mind. I wouldn't give like some kind of gaming advice, because I don't like getting backseated, even by my future self. So I just figure it out myself, with all the wins and losses that are part of it. Overall, I think it's not a great patch. I'm usually quite positive about it, but I think there's too much off. There's a couple of good ones, but there's a couple of crazy ones. I think Orc and Elf are kind of fine. Undead is kind of fine. I like skeleton buffs. Necromancer buffs is nice. They're the least relevant unit in the game for Undead. This is fine. Maybe a bit too much armor. It should be like 4, 7, 10. I think 4, 7, 10. It's still pretty crazy, but I think it's very strong. 4, 7, 10. Like Criplord 3rd, 4, 7, 10. I think it's pretty crazy, especially with this. But at least we'll have a chance to complain about a new hero. And with the promise that they will revisit for another patch in 1 to 3 months if it's broken. Don't leave it broken forever. I think that's my biggest fear with Blizzard patches these days. Anytime it could be the last one. So even if you wanted to experiment and try something fun and see like, okay, let's see how crazy broken he is. If it's their last, and we don't warn them now that it could be a problem, we could be stuck with it forever. So that's my concern about it. I don't mind trying crazy big buffs. Like, okay, Criplord is dominating everything, you know, for 2 months. Okay, fine. But then change it back. All right, that's my feedback on the patch. Still pretty exciting.